Former U.S. President and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has doubled down on his pledge to be tough on immigration. He promised the largest deportation operation in American history.
Given the unprecedented millions of Biden illegal aliens who are invading our country, it is only common sense that when I'm re-elected, we will begin, and we have no choice, the largest deportation operation in American history. We have no choice.
Donald Trump is promising something that's shocking in its brutality, overwhelming in its logistical challenge.
Together we will deliver low taxes, low regulations, low energy costs, low interest rates, low inflation, so that everyone can afford.
And unprecedented not only in American history, but in the history of the world. What is that? The plan is to deport every undocumented immigrant if re-elected. His new deportation plan has the entire world talking. Is this the first time he has made such a declaration? Or is this the first of its kind in the history of the United States?
The illegal alien parents. This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States.
Well, grab a seat, and let's find out.
We will carry out the largest deportation operation of criminals in American history. We're getting them out of our country.
What is Trump's new deportation plan? Former U.S. President Donald Trump faces off in the 2024 presidential race.
It hasn't been done for a long time, but we are going to win New York.
Against Kamala Harris, the Democratic candidate.
We are the underdog in this race, and we have some hard work ahead of us. But here's the thing, we like hard work.
Let's not forget that from 2017 through 2021, Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Before he became president, he had officially run as a candidate for president 4 times. In 2000 and 2016, 2020, and now again in 2024.
We do it, and the election nationwide is over. We take over the White House, and we fix up our country.
He is no stranger to the political arena. He also unofficially campaigned in 2012 and considered a run in 2004. It was the 2016 general election, which he won through the Electoral College while losing the popular vote to Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton by 2.8 million votes, that made him the 45th president. Trump's campaign platform emphasized renegotiating U.S.-China relations and free trade agreements such as NAFTA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership. His other campaign positions included pursuing energy independence,
The start of a new era in American energy and production and job creation,
while opposing climate change regulations such as the Clean Power Plan and the Paris Agreement, modernizing and expediting services for veterans, repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, abolishing Common Core education standards, investing in infrastructure, simplifying the tax code while reducing taxes for all economic classes, and imposing tariffs on imports by companies that offshore jobs. However, among his political ideologies are his hardline immigration policies.
We will carry out the largest deportation operation in American history. We have no choice.
He strongly advocated for enforcing immigration laws and building a new wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. His strict immigration policies included banning immigrants from Muslim-majority countries to preempt domestic Islamic terrorism and aggressive military action against the Islamic State. We will come back to how his policies fared when he was president from 2017 to 2021. While he brushed through other issues lightly, when it comes to immigration, he has a concrete plan.
Illegal immigration costs our country billions and billions of dollars each year.
For instance, regarding abortion, Trump insisted he would leave the issue of abortion rights up to states.
Abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Execution after birth, it's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
Even if it meant allowing them to jail women who seek abortions. You'll have to speak to the individual states, he said. The topic on which Trump had the most concrete details is his plan to deport millions of undocumented immigrants. He made it known in his Agenda 47. Agenda 47 consists of proposals his campaign issued on its website during the primary election season, from December 2022 to December 2023.
The illegal alien parents. This policy is a reward for breaking the laws of the United States.
While many of his proposals may require congressional action, some could be enacted through executive orders. Trump plans to prohibit undocumented immigrants from receiving any benefits, end birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants, reinstitute a travel ban from certain countries, pause refugee admissions, mandate extreme vetting of foreign nationals, block federal grants to sanctuary cities, end the catch-and-release practice of releasing migrants while they await immigration hearings, close the southern border to asylum seekers, and suspend visa programs, including the visa lottery and family visas. These ideas have been the headlines of his campaign from state to state as the November 2024 U.S. elections draw near. While in New Hampshire, he described undocumented immigrants as those poisoning the blood of their country.
They're poisoning the blood of our country, but all over the world they're coming into our country, from Africa, from Asia, all over the world, they're pouring into our country.
A day after he made this remark, he reiterated his commitment to deportation while speaking at a rally in Nevada.
The largest deportation operation in American history.
He promised the largest deportation in American history. Trump also repeated false claims that many migrants are former prisoners or have been institutionalized in their home countries. However, CNN has reported there is no data to support the idea that a rise in immigrants drives a rise in crime. According to them, most measures of violent crime in the U.S. have actually been falling.
Migrants are believing that this is an official port or an official way to enter the U.S., which is completely wrong.
To show how tough he plans to double down on undocumented immigrants, the platform section of Trump's campaign website now lists a set of 20 vague priorities, which are the same as those in the Republican National Committee's formal platform and often overlap with his previous Agenda 47 proposals. Among the 20 priorities, the first two on his list include sealing the border and stopping the migrant invasion, and also carrying out the largest deportation operation in American history. As you might have thought, this plan has sparked a series of reactions from different groups of people, from friendly audiences who cheer him on to angry protesters carrying placards tagged, "Build more bridges, not more walls." Let's take a quick look at some of those reactions. Keep watching. Reactions from key groups. Trump and his allies have talked openly about deporting millions more, including migrants who have been in the country for decades, such as the spouses of U.S. citizens and others whom Biden has tried to shield through executive actions. On NBC News' Meet the Press on Sunday, the 25th of August, 2024, host Kristen Welker asked Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, about the millions of families of mixed status, in which at least one parent is undocumented, but a spouse or a child is a legal resident or a citizen. Would families simply be broken up? After dodging the question a few times while claiming he was eager to answer it, Vance finally said, "I think you, of course, have a number of children who are currently living with drug cartel members, not actually their families."
I think you, of course, have a number of children who who are currently living with drug cartel members, not actually their families.
That's not exactly reassuring to those families that a Trump administration would treat them as something other than criminals. Asked the same question about family separation 3 days earlier, Trump said only, "We'll work on that," which means he hasn't given it any thought. As for how the mass deportation of undocumented people would work, he offered a predictably simple-minded explanation. "We'll work with locals, and they're going to bring them to us, and we'll get them over the border, and we'll make arrangements with the countries, and the countries will accept them back. And if they don't accept them back, we do no trade with those countries, and we charge them big tariffs." Trump and running mate J.D. Vance have pushed for mass deportations and have falsely claimed that up to 20 million unauthorized migrants are living in the United States. They have not been specific about how they plan to carry out their plan, but at least Vance has recognized it might be challenging. "You start with what's achievable," Vance said in an interview with ABC News. "You cannot have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. I think it's interesting that people focus on, well, how do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million.
20 million people here illegally. You start with what's achievable. You cannot have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. I think it's interesting that people focus on, well, how do you deport 18 million people? Let's start with 1 million.
However, ghoulish Trump advisor Stephen Miller envisions vast camps near the southern border. Just imagine dumping people there by the hundreds of thousands at a time and what it would take to provide food, shelter, and sanitation for them. Stephen Miller, who served as the former senior advisor for Trump, said in a November 2023 interview with the conservative Charlie Kirk show that Trump's mass deportation plan involves building large-scale staging grounds near the border, most likely in Texas, because of the existing infrastructure there. Miller is not officially part of the Trump campaign. However, during the Trump administration, he had an enormous influence on shaping immigration policy and was behind some of the most hardline immigration proposals. He said the facilities would provide space for military aircraft to take unauthorized migrants to Mexico and countries in Asia and Africa. The plan could also include deputizing the National Guards of Republican states as immigration enforcement officers. That's the basic logistical idea for how you're able to carry out a deportation operation at that monumental magnitude, Miller said. However, some immigration analysts and former Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) officials say the Trump campaign's goal of deporting many of the roughly 11 million unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. will be expensive and logistically challenging if it is feasible at all. "They're not going to reach the numbers they're talking about," said Sarah Saldana, who was the director of ICE during the final years of the Obama administration. "It's not going to happen." Removing immigrants from the interior of the country requires extensive resources, including detention space, that limit how many people ICE can remove, Saldana told National Public Radio, NPR. She continued by saying, "You're not going to pick up an unauthorized immigrant one day and put them on a plane the next," Saldana said. "It requires a lot of groundwork." However, former Trump administration officials insist they're prepared to scale up enforcement with more resources for federal immigration authorities and assistance from local law enforcement. We can't know whether Trump believes what he says, but his people are certainly acting like they're serious. "They ain't seen anything yet. Wait till 2025, said Tom Homan, a former acting director of ICE under Trump, at the National Conservatism Conference in Washington last month. Trump comes back in January. I'll be on his heels coming back. And I will run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen. Even if Trump can't accomplish what he promises, he's likely to attempt some form of it. Dylan Corbett, executive director of Hope Border Institute, has a different perspective on Trump's immigration plan. He says, His words aren't empty. It's not just rhetoric. He continues by saying, "Unfortunately, because of the division in our country right now and the lack of solutions from Washington for so long, there's a space that politicians can exploit and promote a politics of fear and instrumentalize immigration for their own personal benefit." Mr. Corbett said, promising mass deportation may be a way to score political points, but the prospect of such a measure causes a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety among ordinary newcomers in our country, among families, among people in our community. 5 years ago in El Paso, the border community where Mr. Corbett is based, a gunman entered a Walmart and took the lives of 23 community members in what authorities deemed a racially motivated massacre. So those words can have a ripple effect that is quite dangerous, Mr. Corbett said. Mr. Corbett noted that a quarter of El Paso's residents are foreign-born and estimated that 50,000 are undocumented, including dreamers, that is, undocumented immigrants who arrived as children, and their families. Immigrants establish ties where they live, with many attending Catholic parishes, working, and raising their families, he said. A campaign of deportation would be terrorizing, Mr. Corbett said. It would mean the division of families. It would mean fear and constant anxiety for families with children. It would represent a real attack on the family and our community. It would rip us apart. If we weaponize peace officers against the migrant population, we all lose because the whole community, the whole country, will be less safe because of it, Mr. Corbett said. Because we can't trust each other, and that's what a politics of exclusion does. While Trump did not rule out the need for detention camps as part of his deportation plan, he said there wouldn't be much need for them. He said the plan is to send migrants back to their home countries as quickly as possible. "We're not leaving them in the country," Trump said. "We're bringing them out." In fact, in a July call with reporters, Trump said he'd also tap local law enforcement to carry out his plan. Some states, like Texas, have tried to do something similar. "I'd be using local police," Trump said. "They know everything about the criminals, and you'd certainly start with the most dangerous criminals." Anxiety is also rising in immigrant communities in California, according to Isaac Cuevas, Director of Immigration and Public Affairs for the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. Many who may qualify for citizenship or legal residency are rushing to get their application in before the election, he said. The Archdiocese puts on Know Your Rights seminars and collaborates with local Catholic charities to host citizenship workshops to educate the immigrant community. However, leaders have also considered creating new programs that would serve families separated by immigration enforcement efforts. "It's a sad reality, but we may have to go down that road," Mr. Cuevas said, decrying congressional inaction on the issue. He was also quick to point out that deportations have been a focus for administrations of both parties. "We need to focus on making the country better, working on creating policies that help people, not that hurt them, that keep families together rather than keeping them apart," he said. "We have such a need for reform. Any candidate who looks at that and really sees it as an opportunity for change could really stand to better this country in a way that we haven't seen in decades." Now, what about the Democrats? Trump's opponents, including Harris, are the ones he must go up against to secure the presidency. What is their reaction to Trump's immigration policy? Let's see what they have to say. Vice President Harris quickly attacked former President Donald Trump on his association with the architects of Project 2025 during the presidential debate on Tuesday night, the 10th of September, 2024. Now, you are wondering what Project 2025 is, right? Trump's agenda. 47 is distinct from Project 2025. Project 2025 is a potential policy blueprint for the next conservative administration, namely Trump's, developed by the Heritage Foundation along with other third-party groups. While Agenda 47 was released directly by the Trump campaign, the ex-president has said he doesn't have any involvement with Project 2025 and has attempted to distance himself from it, even as the 900-page policy guidebook was created with help from more than 100 people who served in his administration. Harris said in the first few minutes of the debate, "I'm going to tell you on this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook. A bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends to implement if he is elected again. Number 1, I have nothing to do. As you know and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025, Trump said. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. However, the Democrats have repeatedly sought to tie Trump to the most controversial aspects of the plans, to the point that even their allies got involved. For example, actress Taraji Henson brought it up at the BET Awards, adding fuel to the fire. In his defense during the debate, Trump sought to portray Harris as a continuation of President Joe Biden on immigration and the economy. On migrants coming into the U.S. illegally, he said, "These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous." In the past, most immigration reforms have focused on enforcement and border security. In fact, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, which President Ronald Reagan signed, legalized millions of undocumented immigrants. So, where did Trump draw his precedents from? How have other U.S. presidents handled immigration? Don't also forget that he was president from 2017 to 2021. Was he unable to implement his plan, or did his plan fail? Keep watching to find out. Historical context and comparison. Trump has frequently invoked former President Dwight D. Eisenhower, whose administration infamously oversaw a massive, deadly deportation program named after a slur, Operation Wetback, as a model. That program was launched in 1954 to push undocumented migrants into Mexico. Border officials were said to have worked with local law enforcement to, they claimed, round up more than 1 million Mexican nationals and move them to the Mexican side of the border, according to a government report. That tally is likely exaggerated, though, and includes a significant number of people who today might be said to have self-deported. That is, they left the country on their own, rather than face arrest or deal with court proceedings. In 2016, CNN's Jake Tapper pressed Trump to respond to critics who called it a shameful chapter in American history. Trump countered by saying, "Some people think it was a very effective chapter." Eisenhower did a massive deportation of people, Trump told Time in April 2024. He got very proficient at it. That has been a Trump hobby horse for years. CNN reports from 2016 have argued that far fewer people were actually deported, since many people were apprehended multiple times. They also note that many U.S. citizens were caught up in the dragnet and mistakenly deported. Government records detail a militaristic operation using trucks, jeeps, and planes. The government conducted naval deportations on cargo ships that a congressional investigation later compared to cramped slave ships, which led to highly publicized drownings. Law enforcement agencies, from local police up to the Federal Border Patrol, participated in mass sweeps of industrial areas and immigrant-dense neighborhoods. Press clippings from the time noted that numerous camps were used to house people awaiting deportation. In fact, the Los Angeles Times described one such concentration camp as a wire-fenced security camp capable of holding 1,000 people in Elysian Park. Within a few years, the same area would host Dodger Stadium. Subsequent coverage included a photo of a 10-month-old in her mother's arms, youngest internee, the caption reads, and a 1-year-old American citizen being deported along with his family. Other stories referred to human freight being shipped back to Mexico. During his tenure as president, Trump faced constant pushback from the Democratic majority in Congress, which at times blocked Trump's immigration policy proposals. Federal courts also blocked Trump's moves, including a push for fast-track deportations. In 2019, while Trump was president, Immigration and Customs Enforcement targeted undocumented immigrants in raids of chicken processing plants in Mississippi. Federal agents detained 680 individuals, many of whom had children in a local school at the time. Ms. Gallagher noted the reaction of the community members, who were heartbroken to see their neighbors deported. Proximity changes everything because you see the complexity, she said. You have common-sense people across this country, across the board politically, and they recognize the needs of the country and that people are fleeing persecution. We could uphold our values and our commitment to human rights. If we could sit down and talk about it, we could fix it. While Trump did not employ an Eisenhower-like effort the first time he was president, Trump is bringing the pledge back. In June, President Biden announced executive actions that protect undocumented immigrants who are spouses of U.S. citizens from deportation. But the measure could be reversed by the next administration if Trump becomes president. But can this plan work? Let's look at some expert analysis on the subject and the impact it would have on the country. 5 years ago, Chris Kobach, Kansas's former Secretary of State, announced on Fox Business Network that, in order to quickly deport undocumented immigrants seeking asylum in the United States, the Trump administration would need camps, or, as he also put it, processing towns. The U.S. government owns thousands of empty mobile home trailers, Kobach told host Lou Dobbs, and it should deploy them to border cities and create processing towns that are confined. People who cross the border seeking refuge in the United States, he said, should be detained there until their claims are rejected, then promptly expelled from the country. To accomplish the mass removal of unauthorized migrants, federal agencies like ICE and the Department of Homeland Security would need more infrastructure and likely more personnel, since there are about 6,000 enforcement and removal officers. Chad Wolf, who served as acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security under Trump, says more resources would also need to be appropriated. I'm sure that the administration will look at how to bring in more resources to identify folks, how to target aliens, which ICE already does in a more thoughtful manner, and how to expedite their removals, Wolf said. Wolf, who is not part of Trump's campaign, concedes that implementing mass deportations would be difficult. Another point of concern is how the said illegal immigrants would prove their legal status. A birth certificate or a passport is necessary to prove citizenship, and how many people carry one of those documents to work every day? Would the military just arrest everyone with an accent and sort them out later? There are concerns that legal residents and U.S. citizens might inevitably be wrongly arrested in huge numbers before they could prove their status, if they ever did, in what would likely not be a smoothly run operation. And where would they put the millions who had been rounded up, while this process of figuring out who is and isn't a legal resident played out? These are some of the unanswered questions people are asking. Also, immigrants, including those who are undocumented, live in almost every state, county, and city in America. Arresting this many of them would be chaotic, terrifying, and often violent. You can imagine how you would react if someone busted into your house and tried to take members of your family away. Concerns about basic civil rights being violated would arise on a scale unprecedented in American history. Looking back at history, about 120,000 Japanese Americans were placed in internment camps during World War II, a program which people now properly regard as abominable. And that was about 1/100th of the size of what Trump proposes. In fact, in the history of the world, no country has ever removed 11 million people from within its territory. To find roundups on anything even approaching that scale is rare. That's not to mention the economic consequences of mass deportation. Another overlooked factor is that undocumented people not only do critical work in a variety of industries, including farming, construction, and food production, but they also pay billions of dollars in taxes every year. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, there are 8.1 million job openings and only 6.8 million unemployed workers. As one recent review of economic literature on the subject concluded, mass deportation would shrink the U.S. economy, cause American workers to lose jobs, reduce the wages of U.S. citizens, lose the taxes paid by deported unauthorized immigrants, and worsen the finances of federal, state, and local governments. Trump's mass deportation plan is his most consequential economic promise, far more than cutting taxes or increasing tariffs, and it would be an economic disaster. The biggest issue from a church perspective would be the separation of families and the prospect of children being left alone without their parents. Mr. Appleby said of the mass deportation plan, "If you were to go through with this, it would impoverish immigrant families. It would leave children traumatized and alone, and it would rip up the social fabric of immigrant communities. They contribute to our society. They are full of faith. They want to be good citizens," Mr. Appleby said of undocumented immigrants. But Mr. Trump's base doesn't see it that way, he said. They see immigrants as a threat to their livelihoods and their way of life, he said. And Mr. Trump taps into that, fully knowing how the system works. So it's very disingenuous. We have to take him seriously. But whether he follows up on these proposals remains to be seen. Do you think Trump's plan is feasible? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments section below. Do like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel to be notified anytime we drop entertaining and informational content like this. Thank you for watching, and so well to check out our other videos on this channel.